Hey, everybody, I'm Regina Bryan, and welcome to the Women of Empowered Living. I am really excited about today's guest. She and I met through the John Maxwell team, and we had the pleasure of serving together on the 2021 DISC PAC committee. I have to tell you, though, I was really blown away by her at the August 2021 IMC when she walked across the stage to receive first place in the Live to Lead Leadership Award. What's so impressive about that is that she did it in her home country of Kenya. She's a seasoned leadership expert and founder of Value Connect Management Consultancy. Her work career spans more than 20 years, if you can believe that, in both the public and private sectors. She has worked in 5 different countries on 3 continents. She is the recipient of the World Women Leadership Award 2019, and she's the current chair for the services sector at the Kenya Association of Manufacturers. She's a committee member for the Women in Manufacturing Steering Committee, and she is a newly published author. Mercy Achola, welcome to the show. Hey, Mercy, how are you today?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Regina. I have learned how to embrace that is who I am. I know a few years back, I'd be like, is that me? Is that me? But I'm so grateful for those things that you have mentioned, and that, yes, that is me. And I'm grateful to God for being able to accomplish that. Thank
Oh,
you for having me on the show today.
I am really happy that you're here. So tell us where you're really joining us from, because we see your John Maxwell team office in the background. So where are you today?
Don't we all love this Zoom backgrounds, because you can never tell where somebody is. But I
Exactly.
am joining you from Nairobi, Kenya.
Nairobi.
And I know what, it's 9:30 for you there. It
Yes.
is evening for me. So it is evening for me. It's a few minutes to 6 p.m. So I'm about 8 hours ahead of you. So I can tell you how the day looks like. It's beautiful.
It's really kind of cool, isn't it, through technology, that I can be here on the East Coast in Atlanta, the United States, and you're all the
Yeah.
way, you're so far across the world
And
from
then
me, Nairobi.
in East Africa,
In
you're on the
East,
east coast of America. I'm in the eastern part of the African continent.
there we go. And I'm just thrilled that we could get together and do this, Mercy. You're someone that I've wanted to talk to for a while, because I love talking to women who are international, because I'm always sort of drawn to that. However, when I saw you at IMC get the award, the Live to Lead Award, I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I have to talk to her now. And you and I had the fortune of connecting last month and kind of chatting a little bit about your story. Right off the bat, I was so intrigued because you mentioned your love of travel. And how did that start? And I love the cool story you talk about when you first started traveling up until now, how many countries you visited. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Thank you so much, Regina. And let me just start by saying that the need to connect has been mutual. Of course, I started seeing you on the faculty team for John Maxwell team. I was like, ooh, look at her. How can I be like her one day? So, of course, then we connected on the Disc Park team. And then when the opportunity created itself at the August IMC, it was such a pleasure to
It
just
really
meet
was.
you, to hug you, and to really begin to get to know you better. Because I believe you and I have got lots and lots to catch up on.
Oh,
So, back to the question, how did I begin my love for travel? You know, as a young child growing up, my father was a salesman, very simple, average Kenyan family that we grew up in. And being a salesman, it meant he traveled across the country. And once in a while, he would take us along with him. But being my father, he would always challenge us. Anywhere he took us to, he'd be like, I hope when you grow up, you can bring yourself here.
oh, I love
And
that.
so, yeah, it was always a challenge. Would you bring yourself here when you grow up? And because of how and the means that we had, of course, it meant we were also traveling on really, really budget travel. Anytime he knew of a family that resided somewhere that could accommodate us so that we don't have to incur some hotel bill, he would do that. I think we started also staying in the original Airbnbs because there was a few places that had family homes so that we didn't have to stay in a hotel, so we could cook for ourselves. So those are the places that my father took us to. Fast forward, when I started selecting my career in life, I thought I want to travel. And so I thought I want to be a flight stewardess. Until my father heard about it, I was like, no way. I did not invest in your education for you to end up being a flight steward. No offense if you're one, no offense. But to my father, the investment he had put in me in school, through university and all was, you're not ending up as a flight steward. And
No
so I
offense,
had to
Mercy.
figure out.
I wanted to be a flight attendant also when I was in my 20s. So we might have met under those circumstances.
Yeah, who knows? We'd have met in one of the cities and high-fived each other as we crisscross, isn't it? Yeah, so um, first forward, and I'm like thinking, how do I get to travel? By the way, Regina, um, I got my first passport at the age of, I think, 23 I was. That's when
Wow.
I got my first passport. And I traveled to a neighboring country for work. So it was all work related. And because of having, and this comes back to what Paul likes to tell us, he says, hold your image.
Hmm?
And my image was I wanted to travel. I didn't know where or how. So in my first job, where I was working as a communications officer for the National Railway Company, I got to travel each and every corner of our country where the railway line went through.
Wow.
And so my image started getting fulfilled because I was traveling for work, but I began to expand my travel beyond where my father had taken me. And so then I get my first passport and I begin regional travel, the neighboring countries, Uganda, Tanzania. And then at my third job, I now made my first international trip. I made my first international trip to Sweden, and it felt like, I don't know.
Because you'd always
And then
seen
I,
Africa, East Africa, and the surrounding area. And your first off the continent trip was to Sweden.
yes, my first international. I mean, I went to Uganda, Tanzania. Those are like 1 hour flights, so not really nothing big. So doing an 8-hour flight because I had to fly to Italy first. Milan, I remember, was my first stop. And then I had to fly to Copenhagen. That was my connecting flight. And then from Copenhagen, for the first time, I had to be on what was called a hovercraft. Never been on one before, but the hovercraft now had to take me from Copenhagen to Malmo, which was the first city on the Swedish side. At the time, the bridge that is currently there between Copenhagen and Malmo was still under construction. So a flight of many fasts, but it was just awesome. It was an awesome box to tick. Today, many years later, I have been to over 40 countries, either for work, holiday, or both. And I was fortunate enough to have met my soulmate and my husband now. We're going to be celebrating 21 years of marriage in January. And he also loves to travel. So we connected on that. And so we've been traveling. We travel as often as we can. And COVID has come in our way as far as travel is concerned. We
Yes, it
feel
has.
so cooped up.
Yes, it has. So you started off traveling for work. So was one of your first sort of grown-up jobs in the railroad industry?
Well, I was doing communications. So my work was to serve both the internal, but mainly the external customers. So we were the face of the organization. If anyone had a problem, they had an issue, a complaint, we were the ones to really handle their issues. When it came to handling press matters, if there was an accident, there used to be quite a few of those. So we would be the ones conveying what is the message to press, what happens. If they want information about the organization, we'll be the ones to do that. We also used to do a bit of showcasing to the business community about what they could do. So that was my first role. Then I went and started working with multinational companies, Unilever, Tetra Pak, still in communications role. And then I graduated to sales jobs, key account management. And then by the time I was leaving Tetra Pak, I was actually in charge of customer service for 75 market companies based in Switzerland, Lausanne. So
Wow. And is
my
that
love
where
for
you live?
travel got me jobs there.
And did you move and live in Switzerland for some time?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. And that was a very awkward move in that point of my life because the plan was to move with the family. And so I resigned my job in Kenya, took up the opportunity in Switzerland, and 2 months into the job, the plans for my family joining me changed. And so they couldn't come. And I was like, I'm not coming back home. Not that way, but I felt at the time that my career was key and paramount. And so we discussed it with my husband and we agreed that I would stay on because if I came back home, I wouldn't have a job. I didn't have the experience that I was looking for. And so I left, and my son was only 4 when I left him.
I
And
was
my
going to
husband
ask
had to
you
look after him.
what was the impact? First of all, why did the plans change? And then what was the impact that it had on your family?
Oh, great question, Regina. What happened first and foremost was we were moving, and it meant that we were going to be down to one salary, me. So my husband was going to come and help look after our son. And he wanted to study, take his master's degree at the IMD Business School in Lausanne. And when he applied, they told him that first, from an age perspective, he was overage because they only took a cutoff of 30 years. And
Wow.
secondly, from an experience point of view, he was too experienced to take an MBA. So they were suggesting that he takes an executive MBA. Now, this was going to cost us twice the amount. We were down to one salary. So it was like, this is not feasible.
Right.
And then I brought my son over for a visit just to gauge would he like the place and all. And after the visit, I was like, can we stay here? He's like, no way, mom. I'm going back home. I miss my friends. I miss my dog. I was staying in an apartment and he was used to our big home. So I was like, no, mom. And I was like, I'm not going to force him to stay with me. But like I said, I had quit my job in Kenya to take up the opportunity. So it wouldn't have made sense for me to just throw
That
that
must have been
and come
hard.
back home.
That must have been hard on
It
all of
was,
it.
it
How
was.
how
Mhm.
long? How long did that assignment last? How long were you all separated?
Well, Regina, I was supposed to take a 5-year assignment. And
Oh,
in my head, I was like, I'm going to ride the wave as long as it lasts. And I had this arrangement with my son's teacher that she was to keep a watch on him. And if she noticed him having any change of behavior, which they could attribute to my absence, they were to tell me. Then we had a 5, 6 weeks arrangement where they came to visit me
oh,
or I came to visit. Okay.
oh.
And that worked very well. My son somehow in his little head knew mommy's not here to stay. And all he ever wanted to know after every visit is, when am I seeing you again, mom? And
Oh,
so I had to tell him an exact date, and I better show up earlier, but not later, you know? That's all he wanted to know. And 2 years down the line, Regina, everything working fine. one day after the summer holidays, I bring him back home. I spend a week more for me than him because I'm going back to cold winter Europe and cold, empty house. So I'm like, let me prepare myself mentally for this transition. And as I left for the airport, Regina, for the first time ever, my son just broke down. He cried. He cried. And I left to that image in my mind. I couldn't let go of it. And by the next visit, when they came to visit, I just told my husband, I think I'm done. I'm done. I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to resign and I'm coming back home. And he looked at me and said, Mercy, are you crazy? I said, no, I'm not. He said, what are you going to come home and do? I said, I don't know. And he says, I know you. You cannot stay home long enough. What will you do? And I said, we'll see. As long as it takes, I'll stay home. And so he said, okay, if that's what you want, that's fine. And so I went to see my boss and I said, I want to tender my resignation. And he looked at me and said, Mercy, first and foremost, I don't know how you've done this. 2
Oh
years
gosh.
away from your family, I have respect for you. So I don't want you to tender your resignation. Let me go talk to HR instead. I said, okay.
That is
And he
real
went and spoke
leadership.
to HR.
That is such
Absolutely.
phenomenal leadership right there.
It is, Regina. And he really, he really, really stepped up and really showed me that he really cared for me, not just for what I did for the company, but that he cared for me as an individual. And he convinced HR to declare me redundant instead of me resigning. Can you imagine, Regina?
And so what did that mean for you with the company? And what did that mean for you going back to Kenya?
What this meant, Regina, was that the company was going to have to pay me off for every year that I'd worked. And because this was the same company I'd worked in back home in Kenya, I had served them for 12 years. And so I was going to get paid off.
Oh my gosh.
And how amazing. For me, it was also an affirmation because I was praying about it. I'm a woman of faith,
Yeah.
and I'd been praying that God shows me. So when I got this package, I'd been counting my pennies, saying I'm gonna leave off my savings.
Right.
And when this offer comes through, I'm like, this is it. In fact, my boss was so kind that the last 3 months of serving my notice, he told me, Mercy, go work from Kenya. I work from home. I first started working from home back then.
Right. You started working from home before working from home existed.
Exactly.
I love this. I love this story so much because you had a phenomenal boss that showed real leadership. And you being a woman of faith and your husband and your family, you went on faith. And
Yeah.
the reward you experienced just for being out there doing the right thing, doing it in faith. I mean,
Mhm.
how cool was that to start working from home when you went back to Kenya? So how much longer did you stay with this particular company? And did it require you to move anywhere else, or did you finish working for them in Kenya?
Well, after the 3 months of serving my notice, the condition was it was a group of companies. So the condition was if any of the other group companies offered me a job, then this offer of the redundancy was not going to hold. And so I made sure I zipped my mouth because I wanted to live. Even my colleagues in Kenya did not know about this offer. And after 3 months, I left the company and I took a sabbatical, Regina. I took a sabbatical. My son was falling behind in I wouldn't say his grades as such, but his reading. And I could see it's not because he doesn't know how to read compared to his peers. It's just that I wasn't present. I mean, we had a nanny with him, but that's not it. As parents, we need to be present for our children. We need to role model for them and all that. So I really took it upon myself. First, I had a mother's guilt in me. I felt so bad for what was going through with him. And I was like, I want to make up for it. And so I was present for him. I'd drop him off in school. I'll pick him up from school. We'll do all the homework together and made sure, I took him on a crash course. He still remembers that today. And he's a good reader now, Regina. He's an excellent reader. So I tell him, mommy's hard work paid off. It's not for me, for him. So that was really a trying time. Of course, we took time to travel. The first thing we did, we traveled for 2 months, I think more.
So you were
And
able
then
to
we
have
came
that
to do that.
you had that
Yeah,
time with your
yeah.
son, and you guys also got to travel some. So after this sabbatical period, was that
Yeah.
more travel for you? Was that another position with another company?
Well, after the sabbatical or towards the end of what I actually did probably a proper 6 month stay home.
Mhm.
My husband was right. I was not going to stay for long. After 6 months, I was like, I'm itching to do something. But one thing, Regina, I now knew is I was not going to work for a multinational again. I was like, I've gathered enough experience and I want to serve a local company, a local business outfit that's going to glean from my experience, my skills, and from my knowledge. And I tried to set up a business. That's the first thing I tried to do, Regina.
Was this your
My own
first
business. I
business?
wanted,
Was this your first going out on your own business? And about what year
it
was this?
was,
Was this still many years ago or
this was in 2010,
2010?
2010.
Okay.
Yes. So I make my first go at starting my own business. I mean, I could see customer service was a challenge for many organizations, and I thought I could give it a go. And the first thing that happened, of course, I did not succeed. Now, why was this a big flop? In my 2 years plus of being away, Regina, I had lost all my networks. I had not kept in touch with anybody. I was operating in my little bubble, as it were. And so I come back and I need business. So another lesson there, if you're doing business, they say your networks are your net worth. I learned that the hard way. I had to start fishing all the networks all over again. Not that I didn't want to, but it's just that thing
Right.
you're not intentional about it. You don't think about it. You don't think it matters. So that's what happened. Okay. But then during my son's school drops, I started connecting with some of my previous networks,
Mhm.
people I had served as my customers. And I remember actually one of them, we bumped into each other and he says, Mercy, hey, you're back. What are you doing? I said, well, I'm looking. Do you know of anything? And he was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Send me an email. I think I got something for you. And long story short, he was serving in a board of the Association of Manufacturers, and they were going through a change period, and they were looking to recruit a deputy CEO and a chief operations officer. Now, this tied in very well with my quest for looking to work for a local business outfit. Okay. But then there was a catch, Regina. Yeah. Remember, my last pay slip was in Swiss francs,
Right.
right? And I'm now back to Nairobi. This is a local manufacturing outfit. And after we went through the conversations, yes, they have want to offer me the job. And when I looked at the salary, even my husband asked me, is this worth it? Because Regina, the money was just enough maybe to fuel my car and pay for my airtime bills. And I was like, okay, Mercy, are you gonna take this or are you gonna leave it? And I just told my husband, you know what? For the last 18 months, I haven't needed to work. You've been supporting us. And I'm gonna go into this job with a 3-year plan. Okay. So I
Okay.
gave myself a time. 3 years. What's gonna happen in 3 years? I'm like, this is the captains of industry. They sit in this organization, right? So if I can go in, prove myself,
Mhm.
and do what they want me to do, then I can exit after 3 years, because year one, I learn what they want.
Right.
Year two, I begin to implement change. And year three is to review what works, what doesn't work. And then I'm out. And then I can go and get my outfit started. The very one that I tried before that didn't work. And guess what? Because I'll have done an excellent job, I got all these captains of industry who've seen me, my worth. They're going to want to give me business. That was my plan, Regina.
Did it
Did it
work?
work? Well, I only served for 20 months, Regina.
20 months?
20 months. Yeah.
Okay.
And by the time I was serving 20 months, I was doing 2 roles with the same pay that I was employed with, because another role that was available at the time, the person left and I was doubling up for it. Okay. And then my boss at the time was leaving to work in government. And so the board has this fantastic idea. Don't worry, Mercy's going to take over. We have a CEO in our hands. Don't worry. Okay. And Mercy has a different plan because my husband got offered a job outside the country. And I said, guys, no, I'm not available. And like, no, Mercy, you got to stay. I'm like, no, I'm not staying. They're like, Mercy, we're going to pay your tickets every month to go see your family. My family was moving to Mozambique. I knew my son was 8. I knew he needed a father role model. I was not going to deny him that. So I was like, no, I'm going. And like, please stay. I said, I won't stay, because if I stay, the day I want to travel, my family is expecting me. And the work in this office, it was very vibrant, very dynamic. You know, one morning you wake up and there's a new regulatory policy from government that impacts the
So
manufacturers in a
Mercy,
painful way.
you
Yeah.
weren't going to know if you accepted that position as CEO if you could travel when you told your family you would, because of the type of position and company and the changing dynamics. So even though they pressured you to stay, you
I
quit to
said
be
no.
with your family.
I said no. I quit. I said, goodbye, guys. It's been nice knowing you. Let's keep in touch, but my family comes first. I never had decision, Regina. Not easy. I won't lie to you that it was an easy decision. No, it wasn't. But I had to make a choice.
Did you ever kind of question that decision?
Many times, Regina. After I settled my family down, my son to school, my husband with his work, and Mozambique was like 15 years behind Kenya. So there
Oh,
isn't much to do.
oh gosh.
Yeah. And remember, Mercy is not the type to stay home.
Right.
I'd have loved to be an expert wife, but I wasn't cut for that. You know, meeting up for coffees,
Right.
picking up the it's nice. It's a good life if you like it, but it's not cut for me.
So
And
but Mozambique was 15 years behind Kenya. And
in
this
terms
is in
of
20,
development,
and this is what, 2016,
2013,
2013.
2013.
Wow. And so how long were you and your family in Mozambique? And gosh, what was that ultimately like for you?
Well, in the midst of me settling the family back, I actually took a week off to come back home and rethink, to meditate whether I had made the right choice and what exactly I wanted to do with myself. In the process of doing so, I narrowly missed being, probably you remember, there was a terror attack in one of the big malls in Nairobi. And I narrowly missed being there. I had arrived the night before. I was headed to that mall that morning, and something distracted me. I ended up at the other end of the city. But that same week, I got to meet a few manufacturers who wanted or were interested in moving their markets to Southern Africa, which is where Mozambique is located. And I got to talk to them, and I had done some business development work just out of my own interest, and they could see that I could help them. So I went back with a deal in my hands to do business development for them. That became the start of my business that I do today.
That is so
We
cool.
stayed in, yes, it is, because I helped to connect them to other, um, to find export markets. I used to organize trade missions for them. So I would match them with like-minded business people. I would take them on a market visit. I would introduce them to the government officials so that they could learn about what it takes to invest in that country. Then I also started doing consultancy for Coca-Cola in Mozambique. And I
That's
had one
incredible.
project running after another. So again, I was working from home when nobody else was working from home.
That's right. You were a pioneer. You set the trend.
I was a pioneer for sure, because Regina, if I needed to meet you, I either asked to come to your office or we had to meet in a hotel. But nobody figured it. No one used to question, how come you never come to my office?
Right.
Somehow I got away with it.
You sure did.
Anyway, 3 years we were in Mozambique, and things were looking really nice. I was loving everything because I was working for myself. My clients were happy. I was present for my son. All the school activities, the plays, the after school, anything. Mommy was present, and I was there also to support my husband. So it was working very well. And then 3 years in, and we're thinking we're still here, and my husband gets posted again.
Where were you guys going this time?
You won't believe it, Regina. My husband was posted to Khartoum in Sudan.
My gosh.
That was my exact reaction, Regina. I even told God, you have an interesting sense of humor. How do you move us? Now, Mozambique is let me give you the picture of Mozambique, Regina, since I know you love to travel.
I love it.
Now, Mozambique is like a smaller version of Brazil. The Portuguese former colony. So they have all this laid back salsa, they love to party by the beach while they roast their chicken. And so everything is so relaxed, and they take things easy,
Right.
And then we're moving to Khartoum in Sudan, where first and foremost, I wasn't even sure if I'd be allowed to work like this.
Okay, so you moved to the Sudan.
Needed to cover myself.
Okay. Oh, wow. And so it was like a different world is what you're telling us.
Totally.
Wow.
I wouldn't walk with sleeveless dress or show my knees. And I wasn't even sure if they'd allow me to work. And so I prepared myself mentally, and I said, God, if I have to do pro bono work with an NGO, non-governmental, non-profit, I was ready to do it. If I had to wear the hijab, I was ready to do it. But before we could move, my husband's employer declared and said, sorry, your family cannot reside in Khartoum.
What was the reason for that?
Well, first and foremost, because of the nature of security in Khartoum. They were like, it's not a safe place in case they needed to evacuate us. Rather than look for 3 people, they'd rather move one person who they know is in the office.
Right. Exactly. So it wasn't safe enough for you and your son to be there.
Wow. According to the company, it wasn't. And so they wanted us to reside in Cairo, Egypt, which I had visited before. And it was not my idea of living there alone, especially without my husband. And so I said, no. I said, find me back home. You got my blessings. You can go work in Khartoum, but find me back home. His employer said, no, your family cannot reside in your home country if you're doing an expat job. So I said, okay, let them tell you where they want to send us to. And so we got two choices. We'll either reside in London or in Dubai. No brainer. We chose Dubai.
That's exactly what I would have chosen.
Yeah.
How long were you all in Dubai?
We were in Dubai for 2 years.
Wow.
But don't be, what's the word? Don't be deceived.
Okay.
Dubai is not as rosy as it looks from the outside. When you reside there, and especially as a woman, it has its challenges too, Regina. I needed to convert my driving license to a local license because I was a resident. And I needed my husband to sign a letter of no objection that I can drive. One. Secondly, for me to get a male instructor, I needed a letter of no objection from my husband. Now, this is a woman who's been living by herself a good chunk. She does what she wants when she wants to do it. And now I have to get a letter of no objection.
That's a tough one.
This is where you learn how to count your blessings, Regina. Things we take for granted really struck out for me here, because I used to look at the local women, and one time part of me was like, oh, I really empathize with these women that they have to get permission for everything they do. And then one day I was like, Mercy, why are you empathizing with them? That's all they know. That's all they've grown up with. That's what they like.
What a fantastic point. They never lived our lives.
No, they haven't. That's their life. And I said, that's their perspective. That's their culture. Appreciate it.
That is an aha moment for me too, because I would have thought the same thing. Empathize. Oh my gosh, how do you live like this? You have to get permission from your husband for everything. And yet you just really touched on something. They don't know any different. They're fine with it. That's their culture.
Yep. Absolutely. And then living in a country where I was a minority by faith, that was another wake-up call for me. You know, you couldn't just pray in the open, Regina. You couldn't. Whenever we sat down for a cup of coffee and we needed to say grace over it, we'd stay with our eyes open and we just say, let's say grace. And God knows we are praying. And we just open our eyes, because you could not do that in public.
You really got me on that one, because when we go out to eat, that's what we do also. So we hold hands typically, we definitely close our eyes and we say prayer. And to not be able to, I'm just thinking about being in a situation in Dubai or in a country, and I can't wait to travel to Dubai, by the way.
It's a beautiful country.
And not be able to do that.
Yeah. During Ramadan, in the hot sun, the heat of Dubai, during Ramadan, if you're caught drinking water in the open, in the public, you get arrested. You get fined.
Even if you're a Christian like yourself?
Absolutely. It didn't matter. You gotta obey the rules. You don't eat in the open. So we used to go underneath our cars to take our sip of water.
Oh my gosh. That is truly fascinating. And again, Mercy, you come from that place and I come from that place. We love all cultures and we love all people. We have respect for those cultures. But it is sort of just like if people were to come to your country or come here to the United States, and you've visited the United States, so you probably have been shell shocked by some of the things that happen here.
That's true. That's true. But, you know, there's some things that you never quite think about until you really can't do them, you know. I have so much respect for people who are courageous enough to go and spread the gospel in places that free worship is limited, you know. It's something we take for granted that you can walk into a place of worship, whichever that be, you know,
Right.
and just do it freely. So we get to appreciate the cultures that have been exposed to, and I think that's probably a good thing, because when it comes to diversity, biases, inclusion, those are things I have encountered firsthand.
Yeah.
Regina, I have traveled to countries where um, I was segregated or treated in a racist way, you know. I have traveled, whether it was because of my color, of my gender, I have experienced all in same measure. But then first, I get to appreciate who I am, where I am right now, where I was born, where I live now. But then I also appreciate the other side because they don't know any different. You know, they don't know any different. If they knew better, maybe they would do things differently. So I don't personalize it.
That
When I
is
travel to
so
a
good,
place
Mercy.
and
That's
I'm
so
being
good.
segregated, I don't.
I,
Yeah.
I just, I love that you're saying all of that, because in the world that we live in, where people push for diversity, and then at the same time, it feels like that's not really what everybody wants to see all the time. Um,
Mhm.
I could so relate to what you were saying, Mercy, in that there are things that I know that I have taken for granted that I have more appreciation for now more than ever.
Yeah.
And I don't, and when I'm treated differently, I think much like you were saying, people don't know any better. And so I don't
Yeah.
personalize it either.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was so
Yeah.
good. And I could not agree with
Yeah.
you more. I don't personalize it. How
Yeah.
other people treat me is really not about me. It may be
Yeah.
all that they know, or they
Yeah.
lack the awareness to do any better.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mercy,
And
I
in
could,
some of those places, it's curiosity, really. It's curiosity.
oh my gosh, that is really good. And Mercy, I could talk to
Yeah.
you all day, because you have really been one of my longest conversations. And I could just sit back and keep going with you, because it's
Yeah.
fascinating to me, the travels you've had, the life you've led. Can you tell us in a quick moment, why did you decide to put your story, which is so fabulous, why did you decide to put it in your book, Three's Divine? And I have read most of the book, and it's
Mhm.
really lovely. So what caused you to
Mhm.
write, if you'll share that with us?
Yeah, Regina, thank you. And I'm glad that you're loving the book.
Oh,
And
oh,
I hope our listeners, viewers can also get their copy. But the thing that drove me to write the book, Regina, is first having a recognition of the things that I had gone through my life. In 2016, I had my first real encounter with a coach. I say a real coach, you know, someone coached me. I was trying to understand my transition time when we moved to Dubai. Should I go back to work? Should I continue with my business? And when I finished that, it was a Bob Proctor coach, thinking into results, which later I got to learn that Paul Martinelli helped Bob Proctor to put together, because it's Think Grow Rich. It is Think Grow Rich.
right.
And when I went through this, Regina, something was ignited inside of me. And many times, because some of the stories that I've written in my book, some very difficult times my family and I went through, myself being in a coma 5 days and all, people
Incredible.
had reached out to me to share these stories. Okay. But every time, it's almost like I had to be called out of that, because I always used to ask myself, what's the point? If I share my story with Regina, so what? You know, I was like, okay, at best you get inspired. I always used to ask myself, beyond getting inspired, how can I help you make your life better, make your life different?
Right.
And so I started to find if I could get a resource that would help me beyond telling my story to be helpful to somebody. My coach at the time tried to onboard me onto the Bob Proctor coaching um, resources, but I couldn't afford them. You know, I could not afford them. But he offered, he said, Mercy, if you have someone you want to work with, call me. We can do a partnership. And I was like, thank you, I appreciate that. But I started to put it as a prayer item. And I said, God, please help me find a resource I can work with. And that's the point also I started to see, my book is called Three is Divine. I started to see things in the lens of three. What I knew as the Trinity came out in a different way. And so I began to feel the urge of putting these things in writing. I knew I wanted to write a book. And in 2018, I call it divine alignment. I got an email in my inbox from the John Maxwell team. Now, I had read John's books. I didn't know there was a John Maxwell team. And so I was like, wait a minute. Never had him, at least the books I read did not talk about the John Maxwell team. So they must have been the ones before the John Maxwell team. And then the offer, Regina, was too good to be true. You know how you want to pinch yourself? Because I'd seen the offer from Bob Proctor. I'm like, no way, this can't be true. And in addition to the offer, I was going to get a 3-night stay at the Marriott. You know, I had to Google and figure out what is this place they're offering for 3 nights.
Where is this World Center Marriott in Orlando? What is this place like?
You know, I'm like, is it some straight back end thing that they're willing to accommodate me for 3 nights? And I was blown away. And then Regina, you know how, yes, it is. I know how you ran back to God. He's answered your prayer and you're seeking confirmation. And it's like the Spirit said, Mercy, wake up. Your prayer has been answered. Why are you praying about the prayer that is answered already?
I love it.
And so, long story short, I became a John Maxwell team member. But I was in the middle of a project. We had just moved back to Kenya. My mother-in-law had passed away and we were trying to make many adjustments. And so my plan of writing the book stalled. And before I could, you know, I got onto a payment plan. And as I was waiting to get into the content, I get another email. And this time was from a team member, team member, by the name of Emmanuel Udo. And what caught me about his statement was he's Nigerian, residing in Qatar, and wants to talk to me about the John Maxwell team, which is in the US. That was a big disconnect for me because I could not understand how that was possible.
Right.
And then I thought, Mercy, you are right in the middle of a scam. And I said, okay. Luckily, I hadn't put myself all fit in because I was on a payment plan. I was like, if I need to exit, this thing is not real. I'm going to have some minimal damage exposure.
Right.
You know?
Right. Minimal.
But then I got onto a call with him and he made some statement. First, the program coordinator had told me something which I found so profound. I'd asked him, what if I join this thing and I don't like it? And she'd said, Mercy, if we come to Orlando and you still don't like what you see, we're going to reimburse your every coin. I'm like, oh, who does that? Who does that? You know?
That's an extraordinary.
Like, okay, absolutely. And then when now Emmanuel calls me, he says, Mercy, I'm calling you from the Presidential Advisory Council. We see you haven't jumped onto any call. Do you have a problem? Can we help you? And I'm thinking, these guys are weird. I am paying them. My credit card has not defaulted. And they're concerned as to why I haven't jumped on a call. Who does that, Regina?
Right.
Who? And from that statement, Regina, something deep inside of me was like, I need to get to these guys very quickly. I had told my program coordinator I will only make the August IMC. And this is December. I joined in August and I want to go to August. And I jumped onto the call and I said, I need to get onto the March IMC. How do I do that? You know, I was like, I want to see these guys. I want to see this whole animal.
You couldn't even wait till the next August. You moved it up. You're like, I gotta come in March.
Gotta come in March. And then I had Paul talk about mentorship and DISC. All in one. I was that package of mentorship DISC. I signed up. Still, I haven't been to IMC. I don't know, but DISC sounded like something I wanted. So I signed up. Mentorship, I knew I needed someone to hold my hand as I build my business. So I jumped in.
That's so awesome.
And so I went to IMC. I went to IMC in March. And I remember the whole experience blew me away.
And it was March of what year?
This is March 2019, Regina. I could not understand how in my years of travel to different countries that a company that had been in existence since 2011, I had not encountered a single JMTer in my life. I could not understand. I was busy asking, is it in Kenya? Is it in Africa? And I was being told, yes, yes. And I'm like, no. And then I listened to the success stories, but most of them, Regina, were coming from the US. And I had somebody who had come with me from Kenya their first time too. And they had been a JMTer for much longer. And the questions I was asking did not give me an assurance that this thing can work in Kenya. So I was in deep doubt. I thought maybe it works, maybe not in Kenya. And then Soreen Popper went on stage.
That was so story, good. Regina. The story is amazing. And he tells it and when he tells it, you hang on every single word.
Absolutely. I was like that, you know, holding on. And then I was like, Mercy, Romania, you know where Romania is, because from a development point of view, Kenya and Romania are very similar. In fact, after my visit to Romania, because I went to Romania to confirm for myself what really happens there, I found that we're actually even more developed than they are.
So Mercy, you also went to the IMC in Romania?
Yes. In July 2019, Regina, I needed to confirm what Soreen Popper had said. And I needed to understand what is it they are doing so that I can get to do the same.
Wow, I love it. And then we see you are the winner. You are first place. You received the Live to Lead a first place award for having how many attendees? 3,600?
3,600 last year. We impacted over 3,600. Now, let me clarify, Regina, we did not do this in one event. It was over the 5 months when we have the license to do so. And honestly, Regina, was I doing it to become the first or the winner? That was the farthest thing in my mind, because right. Regina, Mercy is in Kenya.
You
I have seen people doing bigger, better things.
You're like, I'm just trying to get some momentum, period. Who knew even about a first place? But that's what was so cool for me. I saw you, because when I think Bridget Krause was like second place. And I thought, well then, who on earth is worse? Mercy, I promise you, hand to
Some
God,
nondescript from Kenya.
hand to God, when I saw Bridget was #2, I thought, Bridget's not, who in the world beat Bridget? And it wasn't someone from the United States. It's Mercy from Kenya. I was like,
I
okay.
surprised myself too, Regina.
I was like, this
surprised
girl
myself.
is such a superstar. I can't even take it that she's first place from Kenya. That, I think, you set an example with that, Mercy. I just have to say, you set a beautiful, brilliant example with that.
Well, Regina, first and foremost, it really humbled me because that was not an expectation. And it validated the work I do because I put myself forward and I said, God, you gotta help me, that because I'm serving my calling, Regina. And Steve Harvey has distinguished for us in last year's Live to Lead what is a career and what is a calling. So I have no doubt, Regina, I am serving my calling. And as you've seen in my book, I say, I want to die empty.
I love that line. I love that line. And
I borrowed
Mercy,
it from
you are on
Miles
your
Monroe.
way.
I borrowed it from Dr. Miles Monroe because he talks about, the grave being the richest place on earth. And I'm like, for sure, when you come to my grave, it will be empty. There'll be nothing for you to find that will be, like,
love that,
worthwhile that should have happened, But I think the other thing was about being at the right place at the right time. I remember I was on my way to attend the March IMC. My family and I were in New York.
In 2020.
And we were 2020. We were in New York and the plan was to holiday and then they were to come back and I was to go to IMC. And then IMC got canceled. And I flew back home. And you remember John taking us through Leading Through Crisis.
Yes.
And immediately I got that Leading Through Crisis, I reached out to my clients. Thankfully, and this is where I say things that happen to us don't happen to us for us. They happen to us for us to help something. I think John also says, God gives you something for it to flow through you. That's why we need to be rivers and not reservoirs. And when I reflected back, 2016, my coach was in London. I was in Dubai. He introduced me to Zoom for the first time. And so in 2020, when the whole world was trying to figure out what to do and how to do it, Mercy just upgraded her Zoom account. It got better. They improved, they did a lot of improvement.
It did get a lot better.
But I had my Zoom account, And I reached out to my clients and I said, I want to take you through Leading Through Crisis. And they're like, how are you going to do that? I said, through Zoom. How many people can you take? I said, 100. But if you want, I can get more.
Right, I can upgrade again.
It got me rolling. It got me rolling, Regina. When everyone else was on Netflix and just, figuring out, I was taking my clients through tips on how to work from home. Because now, like everybody else, I could say, hello, I've been working from home since 20.
You were like, I started working from home. I'm the one that made it famous.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was like, I know this thing, you don't show up in your pajamas. You gotta take a shower, prepare yourself mentally. All those things I had been through. And so I was able to serve at a much needed time. And so when Chris Robinson told us not to worry about the delivery of Live to Lead, I just believed and waited. Yep. And we got our first time ever platform, Leader Pass, which I was struggling because in my head, I thought, okay, it's going to be on Zoom. And the typical Kenyan way is if I get a Zoom link, I'm going to send it to Regina because she's my friend. I'm going to send it to my other friend. I'm like, how are you going to control this thing?
Right.
But it was so amazing to see this resource. And then, like I said, one of my biggest partners in Live to Lead 2020 happened to be a bank that was in transition. They were changing their brand name. And so they found an avenue through Live to Lead that they could still engage with their clients on their brand change and everything. So, you know, when we're told you gotta get prepared before the opportunity presents itself, that is all it was for me, Regina. I happened to be prepared, and when the opportunity presented itself, I just grabbed it. And so you don't have time to prepare when the opportunity comes. It's too late. You gotta do it in advance.
Oh,
that's a key lesson for me.
Mercy, and you winning in Kenya and blowing away anybody here in the United States was a huge lesson to us. Again, Mercy, I say this again because you're one of my longest conversations. I mean, we've gone quite some time now, and I could still listen. I could still listen to you talk all day. I want to wrap up. Now, your whole life is the answer to this question. But in a minute or less, can you tell us what an empowered life means to you?
Oh, Regina, an empowered life is basically one, realizing what is your purpose? What is your purpose in life? If you can find your purpose and live it, there's nothing as empowering as that. And so if you haven't found your purpose in life, I would urge you, go find it. There's a way to find it. Find a coach near you that will help you, because finding your purpose is about living out your potential. That's all it is. You get out that potential. You know that story, Regina, we're told each one of us has been given a talent. Some have one, some have two, some have five. And we want to be like the people with the 2 or 5 who multiplied. The 2 became 4, the 5 became 10. Please don't hide your potential, live it. And if you do that, you will have an empowered life that even you will celebrate for yourself. You'll feel it inside of you before even others can begin to celebrate you. Thank you, Regina, for having me.
I can't tell you how beautiful that was. You are a beautiful, exceptional lady, and I am honored to have spent this time with you. And I'm just honored that we got to share some of your story, because again, I think we could have went another 30 minutes, another hour, and shared even more. It is an honor to have you, Mercy. Thank you for blessing us today.
Thank you so much, Regina, for hosting me, for inviting me to be your guest today. I'm truly humbled, truly honored, and really glad that I can add value to you and to the empowered living community. So thank you, and God bless you.
Oh, you sure did. Thanks everybody for hanging in with us today. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.